All right. So I think I'm just going to get started. If you could just give me like a brief overview of what's your educational background.
I mean, it's complicated, but brief I can do, but
Yeah.
complicated it is.
Okay.
I so I went to elementary school, joking. I actually studied law, and then when I moved to Canada, I fell into, while looking for a legal job and being qualified here, I fell into a position as an admin assistant.
Mhm.
And then I left and went back to school in Canada for a year as a bridging program for law. And then accidentally fell into the events world at the Canadian Tax Foundation, and now I'm a manager there, while I still do law on the side. So that's basically my background.
Okay. All right, cool. So can you give me a little bit more insight into some of your leadership experience that you've had? How long have you been a manager? Is this your first role as a manager? Did you lead anywhere else at any other organization?
This I've been a manager here in my current role for about a year,
Mhm.
and I would say this is my first official role as a manager.
Mhm.
Before moving to Canada, I did work in house as legal counsel, which I managed myself.
Mhm.
So I was a manager then, since there was no one else in my own department.
Okay.
So technically, I was my own manager.
Right.
Other than that, I've never been in an official managerial role,
Okay.
but I've seen lots of. I've had the good fortune of having great managers.
Okay. Got it. All right, cool. So, like, do you have any like leadership role models?
Almost every single manager I've ever had. I mean, like I said, I have had the good fortune of having some really good managers and CEOs in my life.
Hmm.
So every single one of them, I've never had a bad manager. I've
Okay.
heard horror stories of others. Never had a bad manager. I mean, if you're looking for a famous role model, I'd probably pick Indira Nui, the
Mhm.
former PepsiCo CEO. Man, she was phenomenal.
Yeah, funny thing about Indira is that I am also a big fan of Indira.
Oh,
And there's actually a girl at work that sounds exactly like Indira. And I always tell
oh,
her that you sound exactly like her. Um, but yeah, she really did transform PepsiCo. And yeah,
yeah.
her journey, and she is a that, like, how do you handle a follower who questions or is skeptical about your strategies?
When you say a follower, as in like a staff person.
Yeah, somebody is reporting to you, or when you were a lawyer and you had to pass on a specific direction of a strategic direction of where we're going to go. How do you handle somebody who is you know a stakeholder within your project or something, and they're really skeptical about the strategy that you're presenting?
I just wanted to be clear, it was like an Instagram follower, but but I mean, I'm always open to new and different ways of doing things. They say that you really should never think that you're ever the smartest person in the room, nor should you aim to be the smartest person in the room. So I'm always open to new and different ideas. So if someone were to be skeptical, as you say, of my specific strategy, I when I generally explain things or explain what my strategy is, I usually come from a why perspective. I usually like to explain the why of things for everything, for training people, for anything, as opposed to the how. So I like people to tell people know the why. So to answer your question, if someone is doubtful of my own strategy, I usually explain the why behind it. Always open to hear their view. I will listen to their view, and if I do objectively, well, I guess it's subjectively, if I'm the one that's making the final judgment, if I do feel that their strategy is a better one, I am open to go with their strategy or to do a combo of both of ours. But if I feel that mine really is better, I will explain to them how mine is comparatively better than theirs, like what mine would achieve as opposed to going to theirs. I will take the time to explain it, and then we'll move ahead with mine.
Okay. All right, cool. So let's say if you were in a project, or you're planning for an event, and then all of a sudden, um, you lose a few people that were working for you, and all of a sudden you're shorthanded, but you got to get the job done to stay on target, or you have a very tight deadline. How do you handle these like unforeseen circumstances?
In this unplanning world, that happens every day, all times. If an event ever goes 100% according to plan, then something is wrong. But if some, I usually prefer something bad to happen in the first like day or half day of an event, if it's a 2 day, 3 day event, because then you know that it's out of the way and it'll probably go smoothly from there. But if nothing bad happens until the very end, you know something bad's gonna happen. So we've had lots of experience in that happening where you know we've had to send the temp staff home or something unexpectedly happens to a staff. In that case, we usually have like a quick meeting. We were explained to everyone on the team what's happening, so everyone's invested. They're aware of what's happening, and we do a quick redivision of tasks where I also take some myself. That's that's usually how we deal with it. One of the things that a great thing about my team is that I came from a boss who believed that everyone on the team should know everything. So I've also had that instilled in me. So we usually train every single person on our team in everything. No one's greedy for or selfish when it comes to knowledge. So everyone knows how to do every task. So we do just do a quick redivision of the tasks, and if there is another roadblock there, we just sort something out really quickly, whether it's getting another temp staff on site or getting our directors involved. They're pretty okay too with joining if ever it needs to be that they need to lead a helping hand.
Okay.
I think it comes back to what I previously mentioned with the why. I'm a firm believer in the why, explaining the why and not the how. So one of the ways, I think the main way in persuading people to do what I want them to do is just explaining the why and the end result, the goal.
Okay.
And I don't force people to do things my way. I usually explain why.
If a team member on your team was underperforming, what steps have you taken or would you take to improve their performance?
I don't know how honest I could be here. I'll give you a good answer and then I'll tell you another secret. Um, Usually I just have a talk with them because sometimes it's something personal that's happening in their personal lives. Sometimes I'll just have a general talk with them, letting them know that, you know, I'm unhappy with their performance or they're missing deadlines and this is going to cause a problem. Like I usually let them know when in that talk, like how it affects the entire team. So just the answer to that question is to actually just have an open talk with your staff
Okay.
and just not to be accusatory in your tone.
Okay.
More of like you tell me what's happening kind of talk.
Right.
And usually that works. I've never had to have come to the point where I'd have to say, like this is not working for me, thankfully.
Okay.
The secret I promised you was know your staff. Um, so I know my staff very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell there's one of my staff who is she loves to meet deadlines. Like that's the type of thing she loves to do. Like she never likes to disappoint.
Okay.
And she takes extreme pride in getting everything done herself and she feels a little offended when, you know, you have to call someone else in to do her work. So know your staff, know the type of staff and take advantage of it. I'd say I'm more task oriented, but can I say I'm more goal oriented? So I'll explain. For me, it's all about the end result. I'll explain to people again, like I said before, the why. And this
Mm-hmm.
is where we need to be at the end of it all. This is your finish line.
Right.
I will tell them my way of doing things, and they can choose however best they feel that they need to get to the end.
Got it. Got it.